43% of men today say dating feels financially challenging. 1 in 3 men said they would date an AI if they had to cut costs, and the same number estimate it would save them hundreds of dollars each month. More than half believe AI relationships are more financially practical than real ones. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kyle, and I'm here to give you the daily news and updates from the world of artificial intelligence, as well as answer questions from the audience. I am going to be in Sweden for the rest of the week. I'm heading off to Stockholm to go and meet Lovable. You've probably heard of them. I think they just won the accolade of being the fastest growing startup in history ever. Let me check if that's right, because that does sound psychotic. I think they're the fastest company to reach 100 million annual recurring revenue. And I'm off to go and meet them at the end of the week. Yep. Lovable has become the fastest growing software startup in history, reaching $100 million in subscription revenue on an annualized basis in just 8 months since its launch last November. Well done. So vibe coding unicorn Lovable is the fastest growing software company. So probably the fastest growing company in human history, which is bad. So I'm off to meet them in Stockholm, and I won a competition. They had they're vehemently not calling it a boot camp, but it's a boot camp. I think it was 10 weeks. 6 week long, mine was 10 week, a 6 week long boot camp called Lovable Shipped, where people would build with Lovable and at the end release their products. And they've got a few winners who are going over this week. I was the person who gave away the most buddy codes, so I helped them to distribute and get people into this free program. Did not know it was a competition when I started doing it. I just really like Lovable, so it wasn't sponsored. I just started to post my Lovable buddy code everywhere. People joined up, and apparently in a landslide I won this competition. So they said, okay, cool, we're going to fly you out to Stockholm. So I'm going to go and meet the head of Lovable and spend the next few days in Stockholm in their offices having lunch with Lovable. So cool. Again, not sponsored, but I do love what they're doing, and I'm excited to go and see them. The reason I mention this, apart from being excited because it's going to be cool going to Stockholm, is that I'm going to be trying to do these daily lives. I even have, I'll show it to you because it's very cool. I've got one of these. It's a Osmo Pocket 3, and you can pop the thing out like that, and it records and it tracks your face, etc. So I'm going to be doing the lives from this because I don't have my full setup with me. So I will endeavour to continue doing the lives at 10 a.m. London time. However, it's going to be dependent on my internet in the Airbnb. The Airbnb guy says it's good, but we will find out. These are the difficulties of being location independent when you're running a business. So like when I was in Asia for 6 weeks earlier on in the year, basically it was very difficult to do things like this, regular webinars, regular online events like this, because you have no idea how the internet's going to be. Hopefully that'll be something we fix in the next few years. So let's hop into the news. And as always, if you have questions about the world of artificial intelligence, world of entrepreneurship, I mean, anything you want, you can ask me about board games, books, whatever you're looking at in the background. I'm going to clear that up, by the way. At the moment, it's a bit scruffy. I want to make that look really good. If you have questions, shoot them to me in the live chat, and I'll be able to answer them in between the news segments. Let's start with our first piece of news. So the biggest news today is probably that Elon Musk is open sourcing some of his older Grok models. Now, not the new ones, but the older models, and not even 3. At the moment, the most recent version of Grok is Grok 4, which came out about 3 weeks ago. Remember that week? That was a particularly heavy week for Elon Musk news. We had Mecha Hitler, we had the release of Annie, the not safe for work avatar, which has become even more not safe for work as the weeks have progressed, and we had the release of Grok 4 all at the same time. So it was a very heavy week for Grok. They've been a little quieter recently, but now there's news that Grok 2.5 is going open source, and Grok 3, which was the previous main model, is going open source in about 6 months. Now, we need to remember that Elon time is slightly different from normal time, so 6 months might mean 2 years or so. There tend to be expanded timelines on these kind of things, but I think the overall news here is that there is a commitment to open source, which we don't see from OpenAI. And this has always been, and I think rightfully, a criticism that Elon Musk has had of Sam Altman and OpenAI. One of the founding tenets, and even in the name of OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, is openness. So creating open source models. They abandoned that a while ago. They have just released OSS, which is an open source model. That's the first one they've released for years though, and it's fine, but it's not as good as many of the open source models out on the market. So Grok, Elon Musk is sticking to I guess there's a couple of reasons why he's doing this. First of all, Grok 2.5 is not very good. It's an old model, and using old models doesn't make that much sense anymore because we have frontier models. So increasingly, using a model from a year or 2 years ago, unless you have a very kind of minimal use case, it doesn't make much sense. As the models get better and better, and cheaper, using one from years ago doesn't make much sense. So I could use GPT 3.5 right now. Would I? No, probably not. And the cost benefits of using it open source and locally are still relatively low because the costs of even newer models are still getting driven down. So I don't think many people are going to actually use it. If we pull up artificial analysis, open source model league table, spelt most of that wrong, but that is fine. So artificial analysis has the league tables of various models. So you can look up their comparative performance over a number of different metrics. So if we look up, this is going to be tricky to see. So all open source models, when we look at who create the best open source models, it's all China. It's just not even close. So the top one right now is Qwen, followed by, Hasmin, followed by OSS. So that is ChatGPT. So they've got the second best open source model at the moment, according to this benchmark, followed by DeepSeek Z.ai, that's GLM 4.5, sorry. Minimax, Llama Nematron, that's an NVIDIA model. Can't read what that one is, but I'm going to guess it's a Chinese model. Then OSS, DeepSeek is Chinese, Kimi is Chinese. Then we have an Alibaba model. And then we have some meta models. Mistral is still in there, who are French. Most of the open source models right now are Chinese. Grok isn't even on this list. I'm sure we'll be seeing 2.5 benchmark soon, but actually it might already be here. Grok 2.5 is not very good. So it's great that Elon Musk has got some commitment to the open source movement, but substantially, this doesn't mean very much. So if you head on over to the Reddits who talk about these kind of things, Local Llama is probably the top open source AI model Reddit. It's not just about Llama, it's just about open source models in general. And they're talking about it and saying the general consensus seems to be, yeah, this is fine. And it's great that we're getting some support from the open source community, but it's relatively limited. So he's saying, who cares? We're speaking of a model that requires 500 gigabytes of VRAM to get destroyed by a 24B model that runs on a single GPU. Yeah, so it's a very inefficient model. It's not a particularly good model. The fact that we're getting any open source models at all is good for the open source community, but I don't know what the practical uses of it, apart from Elon Musk basically showboating and saying, hey, I have commitment to the open source community. So I like one of these comments here, which is, some ask why. I prefer to ask why not. If only two options are release it or don't release anything, I'll take it. So the general consensus from the open source community seems to be, okay, cool, we don't need it, we won't be able to do anything with it, but that's good, I guess. It's better than not releasing it. The release of Grok 3, which will be in 6 months in Elon time, so a year or two, is better, because Grok 3 is obviously much better than Grok 2.5, but by the time that comes out, we'll have Grok 5 or Grok 6, so it's always going to be lagging behind. So it is what it is. I think this is mainly an FU to Sam Altman and OpenAI. I don't really see who's going to use this. Also, if you are a company that makes over $1 million, I think it is, you cannot use the model. So they're making sure that it's only for personal use, basically. So there are some limitations to the open source licensing as well. So all in all, fairly unimpressive, but a way for Elon Musk to stay in the news cycle and a small bonus for the open source community, but I don't think of any particular practical use in this particular case. I'm going to hop over to questions. Good morning, Davey. Good morning, Dr. Natasha. Oh, lots of you here. Somebody asking, are you real, Kyle Balmer? Yes, I am real. Oh, why are you Kyle Balmer? Sorry, I assumed the question was, are you real? Because it normally is. Lots of people think I'm an AI. Why are you Kyle Balmer? That's my name. Sorry. I don't know what to I don't know what to say about that. I was about to say I'll grab my passport, but no, I'm not going to show my passport on stream. What's the best way to ensure longevity as a B2B AI consultant and implementer? It is in your domain expertise. What a lot of AI consultants and implementers and advisors and automation experts, etc., lack is a deep domain experience in the industry that they are working in. So you see, not to dump on them, but you see a lot of 20-year-olds who are out there selling N8N automations, and they're like, this is going to automate your marketing for your car detailing business. They've never worked in a car detailing business, for example, but which means that they don't have the industry knowledge to know what's actually valuable for that particular business. AI is a tool to solve business problems when we deploy it in B2B settings, and that means that we need to have an intimate relationship with what those problems are. So anybody who's worked in that industry for decades is going to have them already, and you're going to be in a much better position to be able to know what problems people within your industry have and how to solve them with AI. So I actually teach people to go and give workshops. And when you give a workshop, one of the most important things is you don't become a general workshop facilitator or implementer or advisor, but you hone in on your niche and you talk to people within your niche about why AI is important and why they need to be paying attention. And then you teach them and help them using examples that make sense within that industry, using the stories, using the metaphors, being able to draw on case studies specifically to that industry. That's how you outmaneuver large outfits like McKinsey or KPMG, for example. They're not going to have that deep level of industry expertise. So what you do is you combine what you've been doing in your kind of non-AI life with your AI knowledge, and you find your market in the middle of. That's how you're going to secure longevity. I would also say, built on this, build an audience. So Greg Eisenberg has been banging on about this, and I fully agree that we are moving from a time where your product is the most important to distribution. Increasingly, it's becoming easy to build, it's becoming easy to launch. It's an exciting time if you are an entrepreneur, because it's probably the easiest time ever to open and get rolling with a business. However, that means there's more competition, and you need to lock your distribution channels in place. And distribution becomes the 80-20. So previously, you had to focus on making a killer offer. Now it's about getting that offer out to people, and that matters more. So distribution comes from, if you've got cash, advertising. If you don't have cash, it's probably going to be content marketing. So it's going to be doing stuff like I'm doing right now, talking on lives, recording videos, writing a newsletter, but all of this specifically for people in your niche. So if you're going for B2B, you're going to be doing it on LinkedIn for the most part, and building your name as the expert in your particular industry. So you become the manufacturing AI guy, or the lady who teaches AI to teach it to educators, for example. Like, you need to carve out that particular niche, and that's going to give you a lot of longevity moving forward, because you are the name, you're the top of mind individual within your particular niche. That's a really powerful play. So I think two things: longevity comes from domain expertise, being able to talk specifically to that industry, and two, being known for that. If you can lock those two down, so instead of chasing whatever the hot industry is, you lock those two down, and then you're going to have longevity rather than just a quick flash in the pan cash, which you can also do, but that's not going to work for many years. Do you rely on ChatGPT for advice on topics you don't have a clue about? Yes, 100%. I rely on ChatGPT for advice on topics I do have a clue about as well, when I need to refine my understanding of the topic. An example that I've given for the last week or so was I was fixing the sink in my bathroom. Don't know how to do that. So I had advanced voice mode, ChatGPT, basically on the bath next to me while I was under the sink, and I was able to talk to advanced voice mode and say, this is what I see. Which order do these flanges and things, I'm holding this thing, where does that go? And advanced GPT voice mode was able to walk me through it. So yes, 100% I use it for things like that. This YouTube setup, you can't see it, but I can. That's all from ChatGPT, having conversations with it about, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to multi-stream on various different channels. I want it to be in 4K, 60 frames per second. What do I need to be able to do that? And it helped me with purchasing all of the gear. This is maybe $5,000 worth of gear that I use ChatGPT to advise me on. And then how to wire it all up, how to connect everything, how to deal with audio delay, working through problem by problem. ChatGPT is fantastic for this. It's probably one of the most useful kind of functions of AI, and I don't think many people use it for that. Most people will use it like Google, as a Google replacement, just to answer one query. But you can go into depth and continuously push the boundaries of your knowledge. You can learn a huge amount with AI. But I think it depends on basically your attitude towards learning. So some people are using AI to not have to learn. So you can cheat with AI. So students who are using AI to cheat, you can 100% do that, and you can get away with it, and you can write essays, you can write papers. Detection is falling way behind, and you can basically cheat your way through education if you wanted to. There was recently a UCLA graduation video, and this one guy who graduated, the camera pans to him during the graduation. He's pointing at ChatGPT, like cheering, basically saying, ChatGPT did this for me. And then he goes up and gets his certificate. You could do that. However, you're robbing yourself of the learning. So the other way to use AI is to use it as a co-intelligence that works alongside you, and it learns or helps you to learn what you need to learn. I think in coding, this is particularly important right now, because you can vibe code applications. And yeah, you'll be able to get a decent result, but then you're going to hit a wall. What you can do instead is, while you're vibe coding, you can keep asking the AI, okay, stop, explain to me what we've just done there. Why are we using this language? Oh gosh, what's a class, etc. You can get it to teach you as you are building. And when we use AI as a co-intelligence like that, it's incredibly powerful, and it allows us to not only increase our productivity, which is great, but also our understanding of how we're getting there. And it's up to us as the operators of the AI how we use that. If we use it to cheat, sure, or if we use it to learn. So I think it's a leverage depending on, if you're lazy, you can become more lazy. If you're efficient, you can become more efficient, and it's up to you. That's a choice. So I'm going to hop over to another piece of news. So dating. Dating is getting too expensive. Why more men are swiping right on AI? Swiping right is, I haven't used Tinder for ages, is agreeing, right? That's yes. Okay. So lots of more men are using artificial intelligence companion apps. We need to work out a name for this. AI girlfriends, basically. And there's been a study. This is a study by an AI girlfriend app. So we need to be, I'm pretty sure it is Joy, J-O-I. It's of 1,000 of their users. So this is obviously a very self-selected study, because these are people who are already using it. But they've basically asked these men, why are you using AI girlfriends? Which I think is a very interesting insight. And specifically, why are you not dating in real life? So I think it's interesting to see what the insights are. 43% of men today say dating feels financially challenging, with nearly half admitting they've skipped a date because they couldn't afford it. 43%, again, have felt judged for not spending enough, while most men say they feel anxious about the cost of a date before it even begins. 1 in 3 men said they would date an AI if they had to cut costs, and the same number estimate it would save them hundreds of dollars each month. More than half believe AI relationships are more financially practical than real ones. Woo! 53% see AI as a lifeline for those who can't afford to date, and half of men surveyed believe the future of dating could be mostly artificial. Remember, the sample here is biased. These are people who are using an AI app, so an AI girlfriend app. So obviously they're okay with using an AI dating app. That's already been agreed upon. I think what's more interesting here is the reason why they're using it. And a lot of it seems to be cost. It's too expensive to go on a date. I was talking to a guy at my gym the other day after boxing, and he was about to go on a date with his girlfriend, an existing girlfriend. It wasn't like, so he didn't even have to impress her that much. Sorry, that sounds terrible, but he said, yeah, we're going to go out and we'll have some food, we'll have some drinks, we'll go and do something like that. And he was expecting to spend about £200, and that was just half the course. So it's what's 250, 300 US dollars ish, 280 or so. And that's just what he had to do every week. It would just cost him about £200 to go on this date every single week. I don't know if they had particularly expensive tastes. I recommended some free options, or cheaper options at least, but that's the norm. A pint, this is water obviously because it is 10:30 a.m, is now, I had one in the city of London the other day that was £9.50. So they're pushing on that £10, or what's that, nearly $15 for a pint of beer. So you have a meal, you have a couple of drinks, and you're already looking at 100 quid, and then you go and do an activity, boom, you're at 200. And that is a big chunk of people's income. So I think dating is becoming extremely expensive. Everything's becoming more expensive, but that seems to be pushing, at least in this sample size of 1,000 Gen Z and millennial men, it seems to be pushing people towards AI companionship because it is cheaper. Which is, I'm not going to make judgment calls on this. I think this is a very, I don't want to say interesting because that's the least interesting thing I can say. I think this is something we need to keep an eye on. Almost 1 in 5 have flirted with AI. I'm sure it's probably higher than that. 71% have saying they haven't. I think the big takeaway here is it's just too expensive to date, and AI is becoming an alternative for them. So 1 in 3 say an AI could save them hundreds a month. Yep. 16% of them said it could save them thousands a month. So some people are spending thousands on this apparently. When choosing between staying single and dating an AI, nearly 1 in 3 choose to date an AI. Okay. Oh, so that's interesting. So they're not considering dating an AI as being single. Yeah, okay. This is all going to get very interesting, I'll put it that way, over the next few years. And a lot of things need to be worked out about how this fits into society. And Elon Musk is pushing this as well by allowing his chatbots to be more not safe for work, for allowing them to be more affectionate, and allowing, even softcore pornographic content to be generated using Grok, Imagine. So it's going to get wild. And apparently cost is a factor in this, which seems wild to me, but hey, I'm not going to judge. JW says, how can I get in touch about a workshop? I think it would add huge value to my business. So the best way would be to get in contact with my business partner. He helps with the logistics of that. So he's Harminder, Harminder, Harminder at bstreetdigital.com. So B, the letter B, Harminder at bstreetdigital.com, and he'll be able to chat to you about how we do that. I also have a bunch of teachers as well. I have about 100 people who facilitate workshops for me. So if you're looking for something local and I'm not local to you, then potentially one of those people can come in as well. And they're pretty much global. Yeah, all over the world. User 699944 says, I'm fresh out of uni without domain expertise. How is it best to find a niche to specialize in? This is in, I believe, reference to what I was talking about earlier about if you want to build or carve out a long-term place for yourself in artificial intelligence. The best way to do so is to combine your domain expertise with your knowledge of artificial intelligence. So there was a guy from Y Combinator who recently talked about this. Let me see if I can pull it up because it was fascinating. He was talking about, he called it going undercover, if I remember correctly. Let me see if I can pull it out because it made me laugh. He basically said lots of first-time founders, what they should do is they should go undercover. Let me see if I can find the actual tweet. Jared. There we go. If you're building an AI agent to automate some job, like a payroll specialist, the hardcore move is just to go and get that job and do it for a while. We call this going undercover, and we're seeing more of the top founders do it. It's the best way to learn what to build. So this is a guy, he's a partner at Y Combinator, the startup accelerator and investor. And he's basically saying, go and get a job, which I find really funny, but they call it going undercover. But you go and get a job and with the express purpose of seeing what the core frictions, the core problems and difficulties are within that business so that you can then step outside of that and solve them using artificial intelligence. And the way you might do this you'd go and get a job, you'd go undercover and you would build an internal tool for that company. And that's a really good way to basically get your first customer. So you'd probably build it for them. Whether or not they own it depends on your contract, depends if you do it on their time, etc. Doesn't really matter that much as long as they don't own the IP. You need to make sure they don't own the IP, but you could build it for them, sell it to them, and then basically go off and do your own thing. Or you can just go get the job, do the job for 3-6 months, work out what their problems are, and then leave the job and go and build yourself. It Obviously, this depends on your own personal situation and whether you need an income or not. But I thought this was a fascinating way to do it, especially because he calls it going undercover instead of just getting a job. It also is exciting for the people who don't necessarily see themselves as entrepreneurs. They don't see themselves as people who are build their own businesses, build their own tools. Those people, you're in a really good position right now because the tools to build have become so easy. So using things like Lovable for vibe coding and then Cursor to refine it, you can actually now build a product which would have only just been an idea before without a technical co-founder. And then you can build your prototype, you can build your minimum viability product, show it to people, make sure that there is value there, and then you can go and get a technical co-founder, or you can hire, or you can raise money, etc. So if you do have this, if you've been going undercover for decades, this is a really exciting time right now because you don't need to be a technical genius to take advantage of it. But if you are young, then yeah, one option is to go undercover to get a job and to work out what it is that businesses really need. The other way would be, so this is if you want to do B2B, if you want to sell to businesses, which I highly recommend because businesses have more money than individuals. But if you are 20 years old, you don't have any experience, you could also look at B2C. So that's selling to individuals. So you'd build something and you'd build an audience for yourself on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, etc. And you would sell to the public. So B2C, business to consumer. That might be the way for you. B2C's fiddly because it's going to be more about brand. You end up with more customers and more annoying customers. Whereas with B2B, you can sell one to one customer, boom, $100,000, fantastic, happy days. Whereas with B2C, you might be selling something that's $20 to thousands of people. And when you have that many people, some of them are going to be difficult. That's just part of the mathematics. But obviously, it's doable. You can hire customer service, etc. Or maybe you don't care about that. Maybe not like me. For me, I prefer B2B because it's single sales and they're much larger. And honestly, they're not that much more difficult than doing B2C sales, but it's up to you and it depends what the product is, of course. If you are looking to do that, have a look at yoniman.mp4. He did this exactly. He focused on building an audience first and foremost. And his way to do that was, I'm going to post every single day about my journey, about my building public journey. I think he's at day 500 or so now. He just consistently did it. And then after a year or so, talking to an audience, building his audience, he came out with an application and it's B2C and it did very well. I think he got to the top of Product Hunt and he did well in the App Store as well. So he's doing gangbusters. So he took the B2C route instead of the B2B route. And that is entirely open as well. And that does not require you to go and get a job or to go undercover. So a couple of ways to do it. There's no right way. And entrepreneurship is complex. And you will run into problems and barriers and difficulties and times when you have no money. And that is just kind of part of the game. And the main thing is that you just keep going. Jack is saying the same thing. So get a job or work experience in the field and find something that slows them down 100%. And it won't take you that long to spot the problems either. It really won't. And then build a product that serves their pain point and sell it. Yes. Yeah. Jack just summed up what I babbled about for 5 minutes. He said it in 2 sentences. High Fruit says, I think the definition of cheating needs to be redefined in the age of AI. Do you mean cheating in terms of knowledge, cheating on tests, or cheating romantically? Because I agree to both need to be assessed moving forward. In terms of knowledge, so I was talking about cheating, writing essays, for example, for a university dissertation and using artificial intelligence. Currently, that is still cheating, at least at most institutions. I agree, we're going to have to deal with that. Most education institutions haven't even managed to adapt to the fact the internet exists, though. So the fact that AI is coming at us so fast and so hard, it means they're already on the back foot because of the internet and the fact that we have at our fingertips all of the world's knowledge at any point in time. And a lot of higher education institutions are still about memorization and jamming facts into our head. That's already a bit out of date. And now AI has basically increased that. So yeah, they're in the relevance. To stay relevant, they need to change, basically. And I don't know the solution to that is, but there's a bunch of people in that field. Salman Khan from the Khan Academy has written a great book about this, about how we start to integrate AI and the exciting fact that we now basically all have a tutor, a one-to-one tutor, whereas previously only the really rich kids could have a one-to-one tutor, but now everyone can, which is amazing if we use the technology in that way. So it's up to us and how we use it. Got 50 new messages, but they're not loading. Oh, there they go. And they're all loaded at the same time. Do different GPT models have different privacy and memory settings? Struggling with chat memory versus privacy. Do you mean in ChatGPT specifically? If you do, then no, because your memory and your privacy settings are basically account-wide. So you're saying GPT models. So ChatGPT itself is not a model. ChatGPT is not an AI. This confuses people, and I understand why. ChatGPT is a chatbot, basically. It's an interface. That it's on that level that your persistent memory lives. Underneath ChatGPT are the specific models, the specific large language models, and that's GPT-4, GPT-4o, GPT-5, GPT-5 Thinking, etc. They're the kind of models that sit underneath. But at least in ChatGPT, the memory and the privacy settings are all sitting at that level above, at that chatbot level. And then it just calls back and forward between the chatbot and the actual large language model. So in terms of memory and privacy, I don't think you'll get any additional privacy or memory depending on the model you're using. Sorry, persistent memory. That's at the chatbot level. What are the best ways to ensure accurate info from AI? I'll usually ask for sources, anything else. So this used to be Perplexity AI's big selling point, and it isn't really anymore. Perplexity is still a good tool, but a couple of years ago, not even that long ago, a year ago maybe, ChatGPT would just come out with nonsense, and it would be very confidently wrong, and it would sound feasible. So a lot of people got into trouble because they were just basically copy and pasting what ChatGPT said, and it would just make things up. Perplexity was a response to that, because when you use Perplexity, it would give you a list of sources, and it would say, this is where I'm getting the information from. So that was one way to deal with the potential inaccuracies, potential hallucinations. You could actually go back and have a look at what the sources were. That is now built into ChatGPT, especially in thinking mode. So stick it into thinking mode if you need to have, if it's a task that requires veracity. It's going to take longer, but thinking mode will use chain of thought, and it will source everything that is given you as well. So that's going to be a safer way to do it. If you just use it in, what are they even called now? There's so many new models. If you just use it in instant. If you use it in instant, it's not necessarily going to give you the sources, whereas thinking and thinking mini are more likely to do. There's also pro level, which is research grade, but that's only available at the $200 a month. So use a higher level model. Expect it to take longer, but it will generally reference its sources more, and then you have to go and check those sources as well. The other thing you can do is what you've just mentioned. I'll usually ask for sources. Anything else, you can ask it to verify things. So if you think something doesn't sound right, say, hey, this part, are you sure about that? And make sure it goes back. This generally comes from checking the sources. So you go and have a look at the source and be like, okay, that doesn't really match up with what it's saying me. Okay, ChatGPT, based on what you've given me and what you're saying, I see a bit of a mismatch. What's going on here? And you can work through it in that way. And then, of course, on top of that, add your own layer of thinking. We are still better at detecting BS, because remember that these models don't have a source of truth per se. They are statistical models, and they are great pattern matchers, but they don't necessarily have these hard-coded facts built in. So there's still a loose base underneath. I don't want to get into the architecture of it too much, but they are basically pattern matchers, and they can still go wrong in the same way that humans can as well. But we just use these multiple layers of checks and balances. So using a thinking model, checking the sources, and then using our own brains. We use these different steps in order to make sure that we get a high quality output. High Fruit says, I spent 20 years designing websites, and I feel AI is making individual websites redundant soon. Probably. I think it's again, I just talked about paradigms and how Google search is how we have accessed information for the last 20 years. So we assume that's how the internet works, but it wasn't. But we had other ways of finding information before. We had other ways of using the internet before search engines as well. And I think we think of websites as the core of the internet. That's what the internet is, right? It doesn't have to be. Like in China, so I've lived in China, I was there a few months ago. Websites are not such a big deal, because instead most businesses and individuals don't have a website, but businesses will have a mini app on WeChat. So they skipped over having websites. They also skipped over, bizarrely, email addresses. So we assume everybody's got an email address. In China, a lot of the email addresses are just a big long string of numbers at qq.com or at tencent.com or whatever. And it's less important than the WeChat, the telephone-based messaging system. So we tend to think of technology within our own paradigm, and it's very hard to think of other ways to do things. But China is an example of a whole country, a big country, a billion people plus, who don't really use websites as much. Websites are not the way the internet is accessed. It's via WeChat and it's via mini apps on WeChat. So it's a different way of thinking about it. And we might be moving in that direction where we're just going to have something different. And I agree, it's probably not going to be websites as we know them. Maybe it's going to be our own AIs that talk to each other. I'm not sure. It's fun to speculate though. Google's AI overview discourages people clicking links that will eventually hurt ad revenue. Yes, it will. So they're in this very awkward situation at the moment. It will discourage people from bothering to rank, because if ad revenue is going down, what's the point about starting a site which is based on traffic or based on affiliate sales? So, yep, there are multiple second and third order effects here, all of which are not in Google's favor, I would say, which is why Google are trying to... Oh dear, just overheated. Excuse me. TikTok, you can still see me, but sorry, TikTok. There we go. Hopefully that'll come back in a minute. What's I saying? Yes. So ad revenue will decrease. So Google are getting attacked from multiple directions at the moment, which is why they are investing so heavily into artificial intelligence. Whether or not they can pull it off and turn the whole ship, a $350 billion revenue ship, around, is going to be difficult for any business to do, but they're probably in the best position to take a front-running lead in artificial intelligence. If OpenAI is, I think it's a two-horse race really between OpenAI and Google, in the West at least. China has its own ecosystem, but for Google to do, they're not starting from scratch like an OpenAI are. They are starting from a behemoth that they need to turn around, which is going to be complicated. We'll see though. Well, we'll find out quite quickly, because everything is moving at absolute light speed. Sorry, my camera overheated, so there we go. Coming back. There we go, we are back. Sorry about that, editor. Just throwing a curveball at you. You guys are all discussing cheap dating options in chat. Yep. I wonder if AI dating is just a new shameful thing versus online sites in the 90s. Yeah. I was watching I forget what it was, but a sitcom or something, but it was from the 90s, and there were jokes about meeting people online. So somebody was going on an online date, and that was considered funny. I don't know what the stats are now, but I think so. Marriages, I remember seeing the marriages in the USA. Where do people meet? So the majority is now online platforms. I don't know what percentage it is, but I remember seeing this somewhere, and it was the vast majority. It was like 80-90%, and that is a change that happened in 10 years or so. So from going from the butt of a joke in a show like Seinfeld, it wasn't Seinfeld, but something like that, to becoming the norm. That happened within about 10 years. So it didn't take a long time for basically how human romantic relationships are formed to completely shift overnight. In terms of historical timelines, it was like instantaneous. So I imagine that we will see something similar with artificial intelligence. I don't necessarily know what direction it would go on, but it will become very normal very quickly, in the same way that we might be kind of sneering at it or thinking it's a bit weird right now. In 10 years' time, it will be the norm. Whether that's a good thing or not, I'll leave up to your own judgment, but I think where we are right now is right at the beginning. We are in the 1990s looking at online dating and thinking, ooh, that's a bit weird. Do you think the cost of dates is a mask for the lack of emotional intelligence communication? It's the main driver for increased AI companionship? Yeah, potentially. I know COVID did a number on a bunch of people because they weren't able to socialize. And for some people that happened during very formative years when normally you'd be out meeting people, drinking, partying, etc. And suddenly instead they were stuck inside for 2 or 3 years. That's going to have a huge impact on a developing brain, and somebody who's transitioning from being a teenager to becoming an adult. If suddenly you have 2 or 3 years where it's like, nope, you're not going out, you're not allowed to go near people, it's hard for that not to have an impact. So I'm sure there's a sociological impact of that as well. I don't know enough about that subject to comment on it, but very much potentially. And then AI companionship comes up as a a salve, basically. It's a way to fix loneliness. It's a way to not have to interact with people. And it's right there on your telephone. It is free or very cheap. So I can see the appeal of it. I can see why people go towards it. It's very understandable. AI dating is not going to help with the aging population and population decline. No, it is not. This is some criticism that's been thrown at Elon Musk, because he's always complaining about, oh, we need people to be having more babies. We need more babies. And he's talking about the population decline and aging population, and we need healthy young adults. But at the same time, he's released the most widely available, not safe for work AI avatar and a soft porn generator on the market into basically a basic public consumer application. So you have to wonder where his loyalties lie in that particular case. Yeah, I think that humans are inherently lazy, and we will always go towards whatever is the lowest energy expenditure way to achieve something. So going out on dates, yes, it's expensive, but it's also hard. You need to go and meet people, and you're not necessarily going to get along, and sometimes you're going to feel rejected. Sometimes you're going to have a terrible time, and you're going to feel awful about yourself. And that's hard. That's a lot of friction. That's a lot of work. And if something else comes along and it's a lot easier and cheaper, and you don't get any pushback, and you don't have to go through all the complications, you can see why that's appealing to people. So I understand it. And because it is so understandable, I think that's why this needs to be discussed, and it's going to be a huge topic over the next few years. I'd particularly like to see how it's affecting teenagers, but there are no studies that I can find. All of the studies seem to be 18 and above, and I think that's because, especially when it's an AI companionship company like this study that I just talked about, they don't want to uncover the fact that there are 13-year-olds, there are 10-year-olds using this stuff. They just don't want to go anywhere near that, which means there's a lack of studies and a lack of data. If anyone can find one, I'd love to see it. I think it's going to be even more amongst young populations. There was a study, it was from Reuters. It came out about a month ago, and it talked about the fact that 16% of Americans overall have used AI for companionship. So not necessarily girlfriend or boyfriend, but for chatting. And that could be chatting about their day, talking through their emotions, etc. Companionship. So it's very broad, 16%, which is a lot. Remember, this is a technology that we didn't really have 2 years ago. So 16% is a lot. And then if you looked at the younger adults, so between 18 and 29, that percentage rose to 25%. They did not have the under 18 data, but I imagine under 18, it is higher, north of 25%. If it was 30, 40%, I would not be surprised, but we just don't have the data. But what we'll probably see over the next few years is that 18 to 29 will start to increase, because all of those younger people start to come through into that age bracket. And again, this is a 2.5-year-old technology in its current form, in its public, openly and freely available form. So the fact that potentially 25% of people in the US are using it for companionship, and maybe even more in the younger generations, that requires discussion. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I want to put that out there. I think there's going to be good and there's going to be bad uses of it. And we saw a bit of this when 4.0 got deprecated. So GPT 4.0 was the previous ChatGPT before GPT-5 came out. And it turned out a lot of people really liked 4.0. I had several people in my comments telling me that they didn't just like it, but they were in love with 4.0. I had 4 people tell me that. And it wasn't like a joke. It's just, I'm in love with 4.0. It understands me in a way that, he or she understands me in a way that no one else does. Which, again, I don't want to devalue that. I think if somebody feels that way, they feel that way. And we need to explore that. But no, it's not going to help with aging population and population decline for sure. Lovable is so annoyingly good, says Jack. Yeah. So again, I'm not sponsored by Lovable, but I'm off to go and see them later today. I'm flying at, I should know this, I'm flying at about 8 p.m. from London over to Stockholm, and I'm going to go and see Lovable later in the week after a couple of days in Stockholm. So I will be doing these lives internet dependent. So tomorrow morning I should be around, but I don't know what the internet situation is going to be like, so fingers crossed for that. And then I'm going to be meeting the Lovable head team, touring their office, going for lunch and dinner with them and stuff like that. Very excited. I love Lovable. Cognation says a lot of orgs are mandating AI tools, but staff are switching to what works for them. Thoughts on this, on security? Yeah, so specifically, a lot of organizations are saying, please use Microsoft Copilot. And then people use Microsoft Copilot and they're like, no, this is terrible. I'm not going to use this. I'm going to use ChatGPT or Claude. So it's primarily Copilot that I see this with. And I give workshops to organizations. I used to give workshops on Copilot. I now don't. I pass them off to other people because I can't in good faith go and talk about how great Copilot is and how they should be using it when it's not a good AI, which is bizarre because Copilot is built on GPT-5 or GPT-4 previously, but they've added so many kind of layers on top of it that they've totally neutered it. So a lot of organizations either have a bad AI like Copilot, which is terrible. Sorry, Microsoft. Sorry. If it's not good. Or they don't allow AI, one or the other. There was the study last week, which everybody was going on about and nobody read, which was from MIT and NANDA, saying that 95% of AI pilot projects are failing and there's no positive ROI. A lot of problems with that study. Go and have a look at it. It's not a good study. It's so bad that I think they have made it hard to get hold of. It's really hard to get. But once you actually read it, this is nothing. But people read the headline, the 95% headline, the world's collapsing. It's not. In that, one of the big takeaways was that 90% of staff members in these organizations were using large language models like ChatGPT. Not in the pilot projects, but they were just using ChatGPT on a daily basis, 90%. Only 40% of those organizations had given them access to an AI. So a huge number, an additional 50% of people were just bringing their own BYO LLM, we call it, bring your own large language models. They were using ChatGPT on their phone or logging into it on a website. And that was, more people were using it secretly, shadow IT, than people who had been allowed to use it. I think that's the biggest takeaway from the MIT study is that, sure, the big pilot projects are failing, but people are using this on the day-to-day, the staff members, because it's useful and they're saving time and they're able to do more. And there's no way they're going to give it up. Even if they're told you're not allowed to use AI and we're not going to give you access, they were going ahead and using it. That says more than anything else to me. This opens up, as you say, huge security issues, because when you bring your own large language model, when you bring your own ChatGPT, chances are it's either going to be the free plan or the basic paid plan. If it's the free plan, pretty much everything is going to be going up to the cloud. You can toggle it off. Let me pull it up. Say hide it. I'm very sneaky with this. So if you go into settings in ChatGPT, settings, data controls, and then there's a toggle which is improve the model for everyone. If you turn that off, then they won't be able to send data, supposedly. So it says, allows your content to be used to train our models, which makes ChatGPT better for you and everyone who uses it. We take steps to protect your privacy. That needs to be toggled off. So they've been very sneaky, and that's a euphemism, improve the model for everyone. That is, we're going to take your data and train our model on it. And they make you sound mean for turning it off. But without proper training, lots of staff members are not going to know to turn this off. Lots of staff members will be using the free version, and higher levels have better data security. Like you should be using an enterprise account, really. A team account or an enterprise account. But that's only going to happen if the organization sanctions it. And if it's a Microsoft-based organization, they're going to say, no, use Copilot. And then the staff members who use Copilot realize it's terrible and start to use their own version like ChatGPT. So this is a huge issue, and it's called shadow IT. This is a big leverage point. So I have students who go and teach workshops to businesses, and I personally charge £1,500 an hour. That's my base rate. And then the highest I've charged is $4,000 an hour, so 3,000 whatever pounds, to go and teach organizations about this stuff. And this is one of the leverage points when my students go and talk to businesses. One of the things they can use is, oh, by the way, probably all of your staff members are using this already, and we need to make sure they're using it properly. So we're going to show them how to use the data controls. We'll talk about the difference between the free and the paid plans, etc., etc. So it's a really good leverage point for training because so many people are using it without being sanctioned. Huge issue. It really is. What time is it? Oh, just scrolling through. Am I late for this session? Sorry. You don't need... That's okay, Andy. They're very informal. If you do want to catch up or to watch any of the prior sessions, are all available on YouTube. In So there's going to be the raw footage, but also a nicely edited version of the footage. And we clip out the individual segments as well. So you'll be able to find particular news stories that are of interest to you. So that's all available on the YouTube. That is YouTube. I am Kyle Balmer, and I'm still trying to grow that. I think we're over, I always check this live on air. I think we're over 3,127 subscribers. We're getting there. Slowly but surely. Do you consider GPT an intelligent entity or simply a non-intelligent machine that's great at pattern recognition? Nice and easy. I consider it a non-intelligent machine that is great at pattern recognition. Good luck on your trip to Lovable. Thank you. I'm excited. I'm going to eat some Swedish meatballs and lingonberry jam. Awesome. So I've done most of my... Yeah, that's enough. I've already given my editor enough chaos to deal with the camera breaking down, so I'm not going to do any more news segments. I am going to finish up for today. So again, everything is available on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed there. There's also a daily newsletter, which is a written version of this. So we summarize and provide a daily newsletter, which comes out the day after the live. And that also has links directly to the videos, which are going to be on YouTube. So subscribe on YouTube and the newsletter if you want to get more information. I'm going to be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. internet pending. I'm off to Stockholm later today because I'm going to go and meet Lovable, the AI company. So I'm going to be in Stockholm. Apparently the Wi-Fi is good in the Airbnb, but I do not know until I get there. So hopefully I'll be online. I'll definitely be on TikTok. I don't know if I'll be on YouTube, etc. We'll see. We'll have a go. But I will see you hopefully tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic week and talk soon. Cheers.